Marcus, thank you for everything. You've been my rock.
Congratulations. You just lost everything.
I should have trusted my gut 3 months before everything fell apart, but hindsight is perfect like that. My wife Rachel had started acting different, and I mean fundamentally different as a person. She worked as marketing director at Meridian Communications, some mid-tier media company. I ran the tech division at Data Shield Systems, a software company specializing in enterprise security. We weren't Fortune 500, but we were solid. Good reputation, steady contracts, and yeah, we had money to throw around at industry events. $3 million annually just for the Summit Excellence Awards sponsorship alone. It was good for business, good for visibility, and it kept our name out there. Rachel and I worked in different industries, but our worlds collided at these networking events and award ceremonies. This year she'd been nominated for Director of the Year in Marketing, which was apparently a huge deal for her. She'd been completely obsessed with it for months, but something felt wrong about the whole situation. She started coming home late almost every night, always buried in her phone. Always claiming it was just work stuff. I'm not an idiot. I noticed the patterns. Tuesday nights suddenly became mandatory client dinners that ran until 10 or 11. Weekends turned into emergency strategy sessions that couldn't wait until Monday. She bought new clothes, expensive stuff I'd never seen before. Started wearing this different perfume that wasn't the one I'd bought her for Christmas. You know that thing where someone is physically sitting right next to you, but mentally they're somewhere else entirely? Yeah, that became our marriage. 2 weeks before the awards ceremony, I was working from my home office when I heard her on a call in the bedroom next door. Her voice had this soft, playful tone I hadn't heard in literally years. The kind of voice you use with someone you're trying to impress or flirt with. Definitely not the voice anyone uses when talking to a coworker about spreadsheets and quarterly projections. When she noticed me standing in the doorway, she switched instantly to her professional tone and wrapped things up fast. Said something generic about sending reports tomorrow, and thanked someone named Marcus. Marcus Chen, her CEO. I'd met him exactly twice at company functions over the years. Slick guy. Probably spent more on his suits than most people spend on rent. Too much cologne, that fake networking laugh. Everything about him screamed corporate climber. I didn't confront Rachel right then. Maybe that was my first mistake. But I was tired and didn't want another fight. Instead, I just started paying attention. Really paying attention to the small details. His name started appearing in conversations constantly. Marcus thinks we should pivot the campaign strategy. Marcus approved her travel budget for the conference. Marcus wants her to present at the quarterly meeting. Marcus this, Marcus that. It was always Marcus. 4 days before the Summit Awards, we were having dinner at home and she was scrolling through her phone with this little smile on her face. I asked if she remembered the awards were Friday. She looked up and said, obviously, she was a finalist. I know, I said. That's exactly why I'm bringing this up. Whatever's going on with you lately, whatever phase this is you're going through, you need to keep it together Friday night. My company is the lead sponsor of this entire event. There'll be 300 people there. Industry people, business partners, potential clients. Our reputations actually matter in this world. She set her phone down slowly, and her eyes went ice cold in a way I'd never seen before. She asked if I was seriously trying to control what she said at her own awards ceremony. I said I wasn't trying to control anything. I was asking her to remember she was still my wife and to act like it. She stared at me for what felt like a full minute without saying anything. Then she picked her phone back up and said, "Don't worry." She knew exactly what she was going to say. That should have been my second major warning sign. But honestly, I was just exhausted. Exhausted from the coldness, the distance, the feeling that I was living with a complete stranger who happened to share my address. Part of me just wanted the whole night to be over so we could move on to whatever came next. Friday arrived and the Summit Excellence Awards were being held at the Westmore Hotel downtown. Full black tie event, open bar, the entire production. I wore my navy suit, the one I kept for important board meetings and client presentations. Rachel wore this red dress I'd never seen before in my life. She'd clearly bought it special for the occasion. She looked absolutely stunning, and I told her so. She said thanks without even glancing in my direction. She said she needed to arrive early for finalist photos and press stuff, so we'd drive separately. Fine by me at that point. I got there about an hour after her, checked in at the sponsor table where they had our company logo plastered everywhere, and started making small talk with vendors and business partners. Standard industry networking stuff that comes with the territory. I spotted Rachel across the ballroom, talking to a group of people, and she was actually laughing and animated and happy. The version of her I hadn't seen at home in months was suddenly on full display for a room full of strangers. Then I saw him walk up to her group, Marcus Chen, approaching with that confident executive stride. The way her entire face lit up when she saw him made my stomach drop. It wasn't a polite, professional smile. It was genuine. The kind of smile she used to give me back when we first started dating. I walked over to join the group. Everyone went quiet immediately. Rachel's smile flickered and faded. Marcus extended his hand to shake mine. Firm grip, direct eye contact, the whole alpha male routine. He said it was great to see me again and that Meridian Communications really appreciated Data Shield's continued sponsorship. Big night for everyone, he added. I shook his hand and said, absolutely. Big night all around. Good luck to all the finalists. I looked directly at Rachel when I said it. She looked away. The ceremony started about an hour later. Dinner was served. Awards were presented one by one. Marketing Director of the Year was the second to last category of the night. When they announced the finalists and showed each nominee on the big screens, cameras panned across the ballroom. Rachel was sitting 3 tables away from me, positioned right next to Marcus Chen. His hand was resting casually on the back of her chair like they were a couple. The presenter opened the envelope and announced Rachel's name as the winner. The ballroom erupted in applause and celebration. She stood up and hugged Marcus, but it wasn't a professional congratulations hug. It was too long, too close, too intimate. Then she made her way up to the stage. I clapped. I smiled. I did exactly what you're supposed to do in that situation, because I was still trying to maintain some dignity. She took the microphone and looked out at the crowd of 300 people. She found me in the audience, and for maybe half a second, I thought perhaps I'd been wrong about everything. Maybe I'd let my paranoia get the better of me. Then she opened her mouth and started talking. She thanked everyone who believed in her, who supported her vision, who pushed her to be better. Standard acceptance speech stuff. But then she said she especially wanted to thank her genuine partner, the person who truly saw her potential and helped her get to where she was standing tonight. She turned and looked directly at Marcus Chen, sitting at his table. She said, Marcus, thank you for everything. You've been my rock this entire year. This award belongs to both of us. The room went completely silent. Not quiet, actually silent. The kind of silence where 300 people collectively stop breathing because they just witnessed something they definitely should not have witnessed. I felt every single eye in that ballroom turn toward me. Some people looked away immediately, embarrassed for me. Others just stared with their mouths open. I saw a woman at the sponsor table literally cover her face with her hand. My wife was standing on that stage holding her trophy, publicly thanking another man while calling him her genuine partner, while her actual husband sat in the front row. The husband, whose company had just paid $3 million to sponsor the event she was currently using as a platform to humiliate him. I stood up. Slowly, calmly, I buttoned my jacket and straightened my tie. Then I walked toward the exit at a measured pace. I didn't run, didn't storm out dramatically, didn't make a scene. I just walked like a man who had somewhere important to be. Because I did. Behind me, I could hear the whispers starting to spread like wildfire through the room. I heard the presenter trying desperately to regain control and salvage the moment. She said something like, "Let's give another round of applause." I pushed through the ballroom doors and headed straight for the parking garage. My phone started buzzing in my pocket. Then again. And again. I ignored every single notification. I was almost at my car when something occurred to me. Rachel's phone. She'd left it sitting on our dinner table when she stood up. I'd noticed it there, a small black rectangle she'd forgotten in her moment of glory and triumph. I turned around and went back into the hotel, walked straight through the ballroom to our table while people stared and whispered. Her phone was sitting there, with the screen lighting up constantly with incoming messages. I picked it up. No password, no security. She'd disabled all that months ago. Said it was annoying to type in codes every time. The messages filling her screen were from Marcus. "What did you just do? Call me right now. The sponsor just pulled out. All of it. What the hell just happened?" That's her husband's company. Are you completely insane? I took photos of every message with my own phone, making sure the timestamps in his name were clearly visible. Then I set her phone back down on the table, exactly where I'd found it, and walked out of that ballroom for what I knew would be the last time. I didn't even try to sleep that night. I sat in my home office with a glass of whiskey. I poured but never actually drank, just staring at the photos on my phone. Marcus's panic messages, the words that confirmed absolutely everything I'd suspected for months. Rachel came home sometime around midnight. I heard her car pulling into the driveway, heard the front door opening, heard her heels clicking on the hardwood floor. She called out my name once, then twice, then silence. She must have seen the light under my office door, but she didn't knock. Smart move on her part. Around 2 in the morning, I heard her bedroom door close. Yeah, her bedroom. We'd been sleeping in separate rooms for about 6 weeks at that point. She'd claimed I snored too loud and it was affecting her sleep before important meetings. I didn't argue because honestly, I was relieved to have my own space. Saturday morning, I was up at 6, showered and dressed in jeans and a button-down. Made coffee, strong. I was going to need it. My phone had 43 missed calls, 27 from Rachel, 16 from numbers I didn't recognize. Probably people from the event wanting details or offering sympathy or just wanting to gossip. I deleted every single voicemail without listening to any of them. At 7 o'clock, she came downstairs, still wearing that red dress from the night before. Her makeup was smeared down her face. Hair was a complete mess. Eyes red and puffy. She looked like she'd been crying for hours. Good, I thought. She said we needed to talk. I poured my coffee slowly and deliberately and didn't look at her. I said, "No, we really don't need to talk." She raised her voice slightly and said, "What I did last night was humiliating. Walking out like that and making a scene in front of everyone." I turned around to face her and she immediately stopped talking. I said, "Making a scene. Interesting choice of words." I left quietly. "You're the one who stood on a stage and thanked another man in front of 300 people, while your husband sat there watching. While the husband whose company paid for the entire event watched you call someone else your genuine partner." She said it was just professional gratitude, that I was completely overreacting to a simple thank you. I pulled out my phone, opened the photos of Marcus's messages, and held the screen up so she could see clearly. I asked if professional gratitude was what she called it, because her genuine partner seemed to be absolutely panicking about the sponsor pulling out. Her face went completely white. She asked how I could go through her phone like that. I explained calmly that she'd left it on the table, and it kept lighting up with messages, so I got curious. Turns out her genuine partner is losing his mind because the sponsor pulled all $3 million. She asked why that happened, and I told her I made it happen. Called our VP of marketing at 11 last night and told him to send formal cancellation notices first thing Monday morning. Not just for this year either, for all future contracts. Meridian Communications is completely done as far as Data Shield is concerned. She physically grabbed the counter to steady herself and said, "I couldn't do that. It would destroy her career." I said, "Her career? How interesting." Because last night she made it extremely clear that Marcus is her genuine partner. So let him sponsor her career. Let him fund her awards ceremonies. Let him deal with all the fallout from her spectacularly poor decisions. She said I was destroying her professional reputation over a thank you speech. I actually laughed out loud at that. A thank you speech. That's what we're calling it now. Not the late nights that started months ago. Not the Tuesday client dinners that ran until 11. Not the weekend strategy sessions. Just a thank you speech. She opened her mouth, then closed it, then opened it again. She said she didn't know what I thought was happening, but I was wrong. I asked if I was wrong. I said, "Prove it then. Show me your phone right now. Let me scroll through your messages with Marcus, your emails, your call history, everything." Complete silence. I said that's exactly what I thought. I picked up my coffee mug and told her I was meeting with my lawyer Monday morning at 9 o'clock sharp. She should probably find one too. She asked if I was serious about getting a lawyer. I said dead serious. She humiliated me in public, disrespected our marriage in front of my business partners and colleagues and everyone we know in this industry. She thanked another man on stage like he was her husband instead of me. So yeah, lawyer. She started crying, the manipulative kind designed to make you feel guilty and back down. I felt absolutely nothing. She said, please, could we just talk about this like adults? She made a mistake. She wasn't thinking clearly. The pressure of the nomination and all the stress got to her. I told her to stop. Just stop talking. I set my coffee mug down on the counter. She didn't make a mistake, I said. She made a choice, actually, multiple choices. She chose to embarrass me publicly. She chose to disrespect me in our marriage. She chose Marcus Chen. So now I was making a choice too. I was choosing to walk away from this disaster. She asked where I was going. I said it doesn't matter and it's not your concern anymore. I grabbed my keys and told her that when she talks to Marcus later, she should thank him for making this decision so easy for me. I'd been on the fence about our marriage for months, questioning whether it was worth saving. Last night cleared everything up perfectly. I walked past her toward the garage. She reached out and grabbed my arm, trying to stop me. I told her firmly not to touch me. She let go immediately, like I'd physically burned her. I got in my car and just drove, with no real destination in mind. Ended up at some diner about 40 minutes outside the city. Ordered breakfast, even though I wasn't hungry. Just needed something to do. Scrolled through my phone and watched the industry group chats absolutely blow up. People asking what happened, speculating about affairs and scandals. Someone had recorded Rachel's speech on their phone and posted it online. It already had 12,000 views and climbing rapidly. One message caught my attention. It was from Blake Patterson, my VP of operations. He said he saw what happened and he was sorry. If I needed anything at all, he was there for me. Also, he added, there was a board meeting scheduled for Monday at 10 to discuss the sponsorship situation. I texted back that I'd definitely be there and thanked him. Another message came through, this one from my sister. She'd just seen the video circulating online and wanted to know if I was okay. She said to call her when I could. I didn't call because I wasn't ready to talk about it yet. I just texted back that I was fine and taking care of everything. Love you. The rest of that weekend was honestly a blur. I checked into a hotel downtown. Nice place with a king bed and room service. And most importantly, zero drama. I turned my phone completely off Saturday afternoon and didn't turn it back on until Sunday evening. When I finally powered it up, I had 96 missed calls. I deleted every single one except 3. My sister, Blake, and my lawyer. I called my lawyer first. Lawrence Mitchell. We'd worked together on contract negotiations before. Solid guy, direct and no-nonsense approach to everything. He answered and immediately said he'd seen the video and that it was one hell of a way to find out your marriage was over. I asked if he could meet Monday morning, early as possible. He said he'd already cleared his entire morning calendar. I told him to expect everything. Bank statements, property documents, anything and everything he'd need. And if I could get proof of infidelity, even better. After I hung up with Lawrence, I made another call. Private investigator named Kyle Harrison. He'd done background checks and security assessments for our company before. If anyone could dig up information fast, it was him. I explained what I needed. Surveillance, photographs, messages, location tracking, the complete package. I asked how fast he could move on this. He said if the money was right, he could start first thing Monday morning. I told him the money was absolutely right, and I'd send him all the details. Monday morning, I met Lawrence at his office and laid out the entire situation. The emotional distance that had been building for months, the late nights, the suspicious behavior, the speech, Marcus's panic messages. He listened carefully and took detailed notes, then asked if I wanted to file for divorce immediately or wait for the investigator to gather more evidence. I asked how long waiting would take. He said if my guy was good, maybe 2 weeks, possibly less. But here's the thing, he explained. That video is everywhere now. Every lawyer in this city has seen it or heard about it. If Rachel lawyers up, which she probably will, they're going to tell her she's in a really bad position. Public humiliation of a spouse is not a good look in divorce court, especially when that spouse happens to be the primary earner and just had his company publicly disrespected. Lawrence said we should file immediately, fast and clean. We could always file amendments later if more evidence came in. But right now, we had public documentation of her thanking another man as her genuine partner, while her husband watched. That was gold in divorce proceedings. I told him to do it. File everything. He pulled out papers and I signed them right there. 20 minutes later, I was officially filing for divorce after 5 years of marriage. At 10 o'clock, I walked into the board meeting at DataShield. 6 executives sitting around the conference table, all watching me walk in. Some looked sympathetic, some looked distinctly uncomfortable. Our CEO, Robert Carter, spoke first. He said the board had reviewed the situation over the weekend, and they supported my decision to pull the sponsorship. That said, we needed to carefully manage the optics. The industry was talking, speculation was running wild, and we needed a unified public message. I said the message should be simple and direct. DataShield Systems maintains the highest standards of professional integrity. When those standards are compromised publicly, we respond accordingly and immediately. We don't fund companies that disrespect our leadership. Period. Blake nodded his approval and said it was clean and direct. He liked it. Robert leaned back in his chair and said approved. They'd release an official statement that afternoon. In the meantime, he added, take whatever personal time I needed. Personal matters take priority over business sometimes. I appreciated that gesture, but honestly, I didn't need time off. What I needed was momentum, forward motion, progress. By Monday afternoon, our official statement was live on the company website and sent to industry publications. By Tuesday morning, 3 other major sponsors had pulled out of the Summit Awards entirely. The event was in serious trouble. Meridian Communications was in even worse trouble. Wednesday morning, my phone rang. Kyle Harrison. He said I was really going to want to see what he'd found and asked how soon I could meet. I said, give me an hour. His office was in a strip mall, sandwiched between a tax preparation place and a nail salon. Not fancy or impressive, but the guy got results, and that's what actually mattered. He had a thick folder sitting on his desk when I walked in. He said he'd been doing this work for 17 years, and this might legitimately be the easiest case he'd ever worked. They weren't even trying to hide it, he explained. I sat down and he slid the folder across the desk toward me. The first page was a photograph. Rachel and Marcus outside a hotel, the Riverside Inn, about 30 miles from our house. His hand was resting on her lower back in a way that was definitely not professional. She was laughing at something he'd said. Next photo showed the same hotel from a different angle. Them walking inside together. The timestamp said it was 2:15 on a Thursday afternoon. I pulled out my phone and checked my calendar. That was the Thursday she'd told me she had an all-day workshop across town about new marketing strategies. Kyle showed me more photos. Different hotels, different days, always during business hours. Always on days when she'd told me she was in meetings or at conferences or client presentations. I asked how many times this had happened that he could confirm. He said, 11 separate occasions over the past 8 months. Started last October. Always weekday afternoons, always lasting 2 to 4 hours. They booked rooms under Marcus's name every time and paid with his corporate credit card. I asked about the corporate card and Kyle said, yeah, the guy was apparently an idiot. Arrogance makes people sloppy. Then Kyle said there was more and pulled out printed text messages, exchanges between Rachel and Marcus going back months. I started reading and had to stop after the third one because my stomach was turning. Kyle told me I didn't need to read all of them. The point was clear. This wasn't just physical. They were actively planning a future together. She'd told Marcus in these messages that she was going to ask me for a divorce as soon as she got promoted to VP. That promotion was supposed to happen right after the awards ceremony. She wanted financial security first. The VP promotion came with a 30% raise and significantly better benefits. She figured she'd be in a much stronger position for the divorce proceedings if she had that promotion and raise locked in first. I asked about the speech, about her thanking him publicly like that. Kyle pulled out another set of screenshots. Messages between Rachel and Marcus from the week before the awards. One message from Rachel said she was going to make sure everyone knew who really supported her career. Marcus's response was to be smart about it. They didn't need drama before her promotion became official. Rachel replied not to worry. She'd handle it perfectly. I laughed, bitter and harsh. She handled it perfectly, all right. Kyle said this was where things got really interesting. He'd talked to a source inside Meridian Communications, completely off the record. After Data Shield pulled the $3 million sponsorship, Meridian's board called an emergency meeting. They were absolutely furious. $3 million gone instantly. Other sponsors pulling out because they didn't want to be associated with the scandal. The Summit Awards might get canceled entirely. The board started investigating Marcus Chen and discovered he'd been misusing company resources for personal matters for years. Corporate card for hotel rooms, company car for weekend trips, expense reports that didn't match up. My situation had given them the perfect excuse to dig deeper into everything. I stood up and walked to the window, looking out at the parking lot. A mom loading groceries, an old man walking his dog. Normal people living normal lives. Meanwhile, my marriage was imploding in the most spectacular fashion possible. I asked Kyle what he needed from me. He said everything was already done. Second copies of all the evidence were in the folder, organized and ready for court. He said for what it's worth, he was sorry this happened. But at least I found out now instead of 5 years down the road. Small comfort, but yeah, he had a point. I took the folder and drove straight to Lawrence's office. He was with a client, but his assistant said he'd call as soon as he was free. I went home instead. Home. Funny word for a place that didn't feel like one anymore. I walked in through the garage. The house was completely quiet. Rachel's car wasn't in the driveway, which was good because I wasn't ready for another confrontation. I went to my office and spread all the evidence across my desk. Photographs, printed messages, hotel receipts, a complete timeline. It was all there. 8 months of systematic lying. 8 months of her pretending to be tired and stressed and overworked when she was actually with him. My phone rang. Lawrence saying he got my message and heard I'd found something. I said I found everything and asked if he could come by because I didn't want to discuss it over the phone. He said give him an hour. He showed up 53 minutes later. I walked him through every single piece of evidence. He took his time, reading everything carefully and making detailed notes. When he finished, he looked up at me and said this was completely airtight. With this evidence plus the public humiliation at the awards, I was in the strongest possible position. She wouldn't get anything beyond what the prenup stipulated. I asked about the prenup because I barely remembered signing one. Lawrence asked if I didn't remember. I thought back 5 years to the week before our wedding. Rachel had said it was just a formality, something her lawyer recommended. I'd signed it without reading too carefully because I was in love and stupid. Lawrence said he'd need to review the actual document, but typically these things protect premarital assets like company shares and investments, anything I owned before the marriage. She'd be entitled to half of what I earned during the marriage, but given the infidelity evidence, we could argue for a significantly reduced settlement. Maybe 20%, maybe even less. I asked about the house. He said it was mine. I'd owned it before we got married, so the prenup should protect it. Rachel got served with divorce papers Thursday afternoon. I know the exact timing because she called me 60 seconds later, absolutely screaming. She was yelling about the infidelity claim, asking if I was actually serious. I was in a meeting, excused myself, and walked into the hallway. I told her I was claiming facts, and if she wanted to dispute them, she should talk to her lawyer. She said she didn't have a lawyer yet. I told her she'd better get one because she was going to need it. She was crying now, the angry kind. She said I was trying to destroy her and everything she'd worked for. I said I wasn't taking anything. She gave it away herself. That speech was her choice. Marcus was her choice. Lying for 8 months was her choice. I was just responding to her choices. She said it wasn't 8 months. I stopped walking. Silence on her end. Then quietly she said it wasn't that long. I told her Kyle's evidence said otherwise. 11 hotel visits documented starting last October. She could keep lying if she wanted, or she could accept reality. Then I explained what was going to happen. She was going to read those divorce papers carefully. She was going to see exactly what evidence I had. Then she was going to call a lawyer and figure out her next move. But she needed to understand that she humiliated me publicly, disrespected me and our marriage in front of everyone who matters in our professional world. So, no, I didn't feel bad about any of this, not even a little bit. I hung up. 2 days later, her lawyer contacted Lawrence wanting to negotiate a settlement. She was willing to settle and wanted to avoid going to court. Her lawyer knew exactly how bad this situation looked. Lawrence called me with the update. She was asking for 25% of marital assets, the car she drives, and 6 months to find new housing. I told Lawrence to counter with 15%, the car, and 3 months. The negotiations went back and forth for a full week. Finally, we landed on 18% of marital assets, the car, and 4 months to relocate. I could live with that arrangement. Friday morning, Meridian Communications announced Marcus Chen's termination, effective immediately. The press release cited misuse of company resources and conduct unbecoming of leadership. Rachel called me again. She said Marcus got fired and asked if I was happy now. I said that wasn't me. That was him making consistently bad choices. She said I ruined his career. I said he ruined his own career because corporate credit cards leave permanent trails. She told me she was being demoted, moved to a different department with lower pay and no direct reports, all because of me. I said all because of her choices and told her to own them. She hung up on me. 3 weeks later, the divorce was finalized. I signed the papers in Lawrence's office. Rachel signed them remotely through her lawyer. We didn't see each other and didn't need to. The house was mine. Most of the assets were mine. She took her settlement check and left. I heard through mutual friends that she moved about 2 hours away, completely new city, trying for a fresh start. Marcus apparently moved to another state entirely. Their relationship didn't survive the scandal, shocking absolutely no one. The Summit Awards got canceled that year. Too many sponsors had pulled out and they couldn't recover the funding. The organization blamed unforeseen circumstances in their official statement. Everyone in the industry knew the real truth. 6 months passed. The industry gradually moved on to new scandals and new drama. People stopped asking me about that night. That's how these things work. Something newer and more interesting always comes along. I got promoted to VP of Strategic Development. Robert said I'd earned it by handling the crisis with dignity and keeping the company's reputation intact through a difficult situation. The board unanimously agreed. My team grew significantly, and we landed 3 major contracts that quarter. Business was better than it had been in years. I started going to the gym again consistently, lost about 15 pounds, felt physically stronger and mentally clearer. Turns out carrying around a dead marriage takes way more energy than you realize until it's gone. One Tuesday, my VP Blake invited me to a tech industry networking mixer. I almost said no out of habit, then figured why not. That's where I met Sophie. She worked in cybersecurity consulting, sharp and confident, made me laugh within the first 5 minutes of conversation. We talked for over an hour about everything except my divorce. She gave me her business card. I waited 3 days to call her because I didn't want to seem desperate or needy. We met for coffee, then dinner, then more dinners after that. She knew about my divorce because literally everyone in the industry knew about it. But she didn't ask for sordid details. She just said people mess up sometimes, and what really matters is how you handle it moving forward. I really appreciated that perspective. 2 months later, the Summit Awards organization reached out with new leadership, wanting a completely clean slate. They wanted Data Shield Systems back as their primary sponsor. I declined, politely. They came back with a substantially better deal. I still declined. Then they asked if I would speak at next year's event as part of a panel on crisis management and professional integrity. Lawrence thought it would be a brilliant power move. Blake called it poetic justice. Sophie said it was entirely my choice. I accepted the speaking invitation. The speech I gave wasn't about revenge or getting even. It wasn't about Rachel or Marcus or past drama. It was about maintaining professional standards, knowing your worth as a person, and having the strength to walk away when basic respect is gone. 300 people attended the event, some familiar faces from before, mostly new people. I spoke for 20 minutes and got a standing ovation. Afterward, during the reception, someone asked if I'd ever confronted my ex-wife, after everything was settled and finalized. I said no. Some people don't deserve closure conversations. They just deserve to be left behind in your past, where they belong. The group around me nodded in agreement. Sophie picked me up from the airport that night. We grabbed late dinner at this casual place near her apartment. Nothing fancy, just good food and good company. She asked how the speech went. I said it went well, but Honestly, I was completely done talking about the past. I'd rather focus on what's ahead of us. She smiled and said, "That was a good answer." For the first time in years, I actually believed my own words. The past was genuinely finished. Marcus was gone and forgotten. My ex-wife was someone else's problem now. I had my company, my career, my self-respect back. That was more than enough. 1 year after the awards disaster, I received an email from Rachel. The subject line said she owed me an apology. I stared at it for a solid minute with my finger hovering over the delete button. Then, curiosity won out. She wrote that she knew she didn't deserve any response, and that what she did was completely unforgivable. She'd been in therapy for months, working on herself, trying to understand why she made those choices. She just wanted me to know she was truly and deeply sorry and hoped I was doing well. I read it twice, then closed my laptop without responding. Sophie was in the kitchen making breakfast. She looked over and asked if everything was okay. I said, "Yeah, just someone from my past trying to rewrite history." She asked if I was going to respond. I thought about it, thought about all the things I could say, all the ways I could make Rachel feel worse, all the opportunities for one final confrontation. Then I realized something important. I didn't need to respond. I didn't need anything from her. I said no. Some apologies come way too late, and this was definitely one of them. I deleted the email permanently and blocked her address. Sophie slid a plate of pancakes across the counter. We ate breakfast, talked about our work projects, made plans for the weekend. Normal stuff, the kind of daily life that actually matters. Later that afternoon, Robert called about an upcoming board meeting. They were announcing expansion plans and opening a new office in Seattle. They wanted me to lead the entire operation. Big opportunity, significant raise, my own hand-picked team. He asked if I was interested. I looked around my house, the house that used to feel so empty, but now just felt like a space I could leave behind if something better came along. I told him I'd think it over. That night I told Sophie about the Seattle opportunity. She didn't even hesitate. She said she could work remotely if I wanted company out there. I asked if she'd really move across the country with me. She said why not? A fresh start in a new city sounded perfect. 2 months later, we were packing up boxes, leaving the city and all the painful memories behind, leaving everything that reminded me of who I used to be married to. The house sold quickly in a good market for a great price. I signed the final papers in the exact same office where I'd signed my divorce documents. Full circle. Seattle was cold when we arrived in November, snow already covering the ground. Sophie and I found a modern apartment downtown, clean and new, completely ours. No ghosts, no history, no baggage, just moving forward together. I never heard from Rachel again after that deleted email. Never wondered what happened to Marcus or where he ended up. I genuinely didn't care. Some chapters in your life close quietly with no dramatic final scene, no big confrontation. Just a door that shuts and stays shut permanently. I was completely fine with that. Better than fine, actually. I was finally free.